Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we're going to do some speed pruning and we're going to start out with this tree. It's got a nice pot, a good balance. You can see it's gotten a little shaggy. I call this one my oak tree bonsai. And we'll just start right in. And, by speed pruning, I basically mean, we're simply going to do a quick pruning, get it back into basic shape, take some of the shagginess out of it, remove stuff that is straight up, straight down, stuff that's growing into the trunk, or anything that's too thick or too long. We're basically doing kind of a profile pruning and a shortening and getting rid of stuff that we know we don't need. But we're not doing any deep, structural pruning, or huge changes to the tree. So the idea is to come in here, neaten it up, make it look better, and get rid of growth that we know that we're not going to use. And I find it a very helpful technique. So you can see I'm just coming in here. There's a lot of growth that's going straight up. I'm just going to get rid of that. Stuff that's going the right direction like this, but it's a bit too long. So I'm going to cut that back. And I'm doing some profile pruning. So again, sometimes I'll go back to 2 to 3 sets of leaves, but I really just want to get the profile back under control and have the tree not look so darn shaggy. Here's some stuff that's really growing to the inside. You always want to tune the top a bit because these are, like most trees, they really grow very strongly on the top. Here's one that's getting thick and long. It's up too high. Get rid of that. And the big idea is, we're not looking, there's one kind of, it's growing to the inside and kind of long. So I'm just not going to be able to use that. So I'm going to take it all the way off. And, the idea is to make the tree look like we care about it. We're concerned about the shape and we're not going for perfection. We're just going to, move it forward a bit. It helps to do this kind of pruning because, it sort of gives it the basic shape that we're going for. Keeps the tree small. Um, it uses less water, it's less unsightly, and it's, something that rather than looking at it and seeing something that is another job I have to do, I can give it a quick, 2, 3, 5 minute prune here and then really be charmed by it. And again, it's just a few simple, basic rules that I go by, where, if something is, just visually annoying you, just take it back or take it off. And, you just kind of keep doing that for a few minutes quickly. You don't want to overthink it. Now, when I do detailed structural pruning, I'm really thinking about the future of the tree and where I want to go. But for this stuff, I'm kind of quickly just doing profile pruning and setting up the tree so that its new growth is something that I want. Right, it's either in the right spot. I don't know if I mentioned this. You're also, if something's getting too thick, you kind of want to weaken it back so it doesn't continue to get out of scale, which often happens um, to many of the upper branches and the tops of these dwarf jades. And the other thing, it sort of helps you stay, kind of catch up with your trees. I didn't do as much pruning as I should have during the winter. I'm just working on the top here. Here's something that is just too thick and going the wrong way. And, a lot of the trees got ahead of me, right? And, if you come in here and do this quickly and more often, it really helps with that. And, I have a lot of trees that need pruning, and I really want to get them done uh, before I put them outside. So there'll be several sessions of speed pruning, so hopefully you enjoy it. So I think I'm pretty much done with this one. You can see I haven't done a lot, but it's got it basically back into the primary shape, so I'll just clean it up a little. It's got nice bark. This tree continues just to get better and better. I really like the trunk and the bark. And Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I really like the pot combination. And there we go. I'll put it back on the shelf and we will choose another victim. So let me find the next tree here. And this one I call my mellow yellow tree. And you can see it's gotten a bit shaggy. It's in a beautiful little, I think this is a Hattori pot. I call it mellow yellow because of the pot. It just kind of looks, it's kind of got some patina. It's old, it's weathered. Just looks great. And you can see it's just gotten some long shoots. And so, this is a prime candidate for some speed pruning, where I can quickly just go ahead and, return the profile shape of the tree that I want. And also, cut back on the top. My idea for this tree is I want it to be, sort of one of these more flat top trees, at least for now. And then we'll adapt it from there as the tree ages. This tree hasn't been in this pot all that long. I will um, put some video links in the description where I'll show I'll either link you to the playlist or the last videos for each one of these trees so you can get a sense of where they're coming from. As I look at this one, it's got a lot of branches kind of coming up, and I can't decide if I'm going to sort of simplify that in the future, if I'm happy with where it's at. So for now, I'm just letting it go and thicken up. But I will probably do some structural pruning to kind of simplify this at some point, but not today. Today, all about speed pruning. So I'm just coming in here and tuning it up. I think it also is a good job here to take off these downward facing leaves. Most of these leaves are, they're old leaves, so they've already put out a set of two new branches, kind of, near where they've grown out of their branch, and they're not really needed anymore, and it just kind of neatens it up. And you can see already just a few minutes where we're getting a much better shape where the tree wouldn't draw your eye as being something that is just not maintained. And this one is quite thick on the top here, and I don't mind that. A lot of these PAs, Portulacaria Afras, kind of evolved to that, and then I just kind of let it go for a while, and then at some point you want to kind of thin it out, so you can see the definition, and some light can get in there, and I want to see some of the trunk, so I kind of let it get really thick, but then I want to cut some layers in, right? So there's some complexity to the tree, and it's not just like a green shape. You want some definition and detail to it. But I'm just pruning this off, take some of this downward growth off, and shorten up some of these branches. And it kind of brings it all back into size, right? Now, as I look at it, somehow the tree looks bigger when I've gotten rid of all that extraneous growth. So I don't think I want to do too much more to this one. It's looking pretty good. This tree is kind of early on in its development. It still looks kind of juvenile to me, but the trunk, since I put it in this pot, is really thickened up. So I think, it's got a good future. But I just wanted to tune it up a bit, make a couple more cuts here. Could probably work on it on the left there, but I'm just going to let it go for now. Give it a quick spin. I think this is the front. And that one looks good. I may take this branch off at some point, maybe this summer. But let's find another tree. This is one I'm excited about. This is a large cutting I had basically, and I just recently put in this pot. I love this little pot. But I've just letting it grow wild, so it can get established in the pot. But I'm really happy with it so far. I call this one at least baby blue for now. If you have please comment with a better name. This is a variegated, and I'm just gonna neaten it up a little. As I said, I'm letting it just go wild, and this kind of shows you can kind of get an instant bonsai. This really looks like an old tree. Um, maybe an old apple tree or something, because it's all trunk and it's got. Now I think I'm gonna take this growth. I've let this on here because I kind of like how it looks, but I think I'll take it off now It almost looked like some bushes along the bottom of the tree, but I think it's kind of distracting. You can see I've got this kind of like this section here, which is kind of looks like a gnarled trunk base. And I don't know, I find it just a charming tree. I can't wait to see how this one develops. And like I said, instant bonsai from a cutting, put it in a small pot, and it's just happy, happy, happy. So next up, I want to give this forest a quick tune-up. This is what I call my lodgepole pine forest because they're kind of straight as an arrow, and it looks pretty good. I just want to mainly reduce the top, and like these branches on this main tree that have just gotten really, really long, and that'll just get stronger and stronger, and it's not the shape I want. I want sort of compact, tighter growth closer in. So I'm just coming in here and again, profile pruning, and just taking away anything that's gotten a little too wild because it doesn't it looks more like a young sapling bush or something, a very young tree, and I want it to look a little older, and especially these, I want them to be very columnar, I guess you say. And they don't look that way now. And I find if you just come in here, this is going straight up to the inside, and just quickly do fast pruning with the basic rules we've already discussed, and it will just look a whole lot better. And this one I'm really just shortening down. These trees are kind of invading their neighbors, and I'm really cutting back the top because if you don't, that will just take off. And, you'll see here in just a few minutes, it'll look a whole lot better. So we've kind of done a bit of the left side. I'll start working on the right-hand side of the forest here. Got a lot of trees in here. This is a good idea. If you have a bunch of straight trees with not very interesting trunks, you can do a forest much like this. And this one is really grown a lot in the top. I really want the top to be thin. So I'm just kind of cutting it back. It's got some low branches here. I think I'm going to keep those on for now. It kind of adds some background fill in. And I think that's about it for this one. I noticed, it looks like I saw a little white fleck here. Huh. I don't know. It's a little suspicious. So whenever I see that, I just bring in my little handy dandy isopropyl alcohol and just give it a hit, and hopefully nip things in the bud. There we go. Looks great. So this next tree I call the mother tree. I think actually I have two of these large trunked variegated dwarf jades, which I call the mother trees. I'm gonna have to straighten that out, but it's an interesting tree. I can't. It's got like these three big trunks, and it's got kind of a funky shape here, where a couple of them lean into one another, but it's really just grown wild. Which I wanted to do. It looks like it needs some water too. It's a little dehydrated looking, but here, like this is growing to the inside. This is growing to the inside. This is growing straight up. I haven't pruned it in quite a while. I've just been letting it grow. And, this is probably not something I need. And just kind of, once again, just profile pruning. I find the easiest thing is to get stuff like this. It's just growing the wrong direction. Cut that off first. Um, you know, some of this stuff I may or may not end up using, but it's best to cut it back to get more compact growth to the inside. This is a little confusing here. And then, of course, prune the top, which we've been doing to all these trees, because if you don't, it'll just keep taking off, unless that's what you want. You may want to strengthen a particular area of the tree, and if that's the case, just let it rip. So as I'm working on this, I want to introduce the thought for the day, and I think I've done this one before, but it's, pruning makes the tree go. It shapes it, it keeps it small and in control. You get more branches. You kind of work on smaller leaves, you prune the roots, and, without pruning, you're basically just kind of growing a bush. And, like I said, if that's what you want, if you want it to grow big, just let it grow fast, feed it a lot, keep it in a huge pot or not even in a pot. But, once in a pot, for me, I'm going for definition and kind of refining the tree. So, that means pruning. And, the more pruning you do, the more you're kind of advancing the tree. Um, and I've found that it's really really helpful. Um, you know, to think about pruning a lot. Structural pruning in particular, where you're picking your primary branches, but also pruning like this, just kind of everyday profile pruning. So now you can see here where these two branches come up and they kind of go, they're close together, they kind of go out apart and then they come back together. I haven't decided, I really don't like that. Um, but so far I don't really know exactly what I want to do with it, so I'm just continuing to get some definition here. If this is the front of the tree, maybe it doesn't matter. Um, Add some comments about what you might think about that. Like again, like this is the area that looks a bit kind of wonky to me. Eventually I'll fix it, but I don't know exactly what I want to do at the moment. So any advice or ideas, greatly appreciated. And I don't want to do too much more to this one. This is the last tree. Like I said, there'll be a series of these videos coming up. But I want to thank you for spending time with me and watching the channel. And I will see you all again quite soon. We'll just do a little victory lap here on the outtake. It's kind of a cute tree, lots of potential.